50 unidentified brides were discovered by a retired West Seneca photographer.
And it was totally serendipity. Ettore-Winter Studios had taken all these bride photos, and Ettore Porreca, who is now in his 90s, met up with executive director Melissa Brown and asked if we could help find the people that were in the photos.
Connie Caldwell is Director of Communications and Community Management at the History Museum. WBFO News reached 92-year-old Ettore Porreca at his West Seneca home to ask him about the bridal photos.
Tegler's, which was one of the finest bridal shops in the area, if not the finest, suggested to us that if we photographed any girls who bought their gowns from their store, if we made an extra copy, they would put it up on their store. So we did.
And then they were on display at Tegler. So there are these beautiful oversized posters of these gorgeous women between the 50s and late 60s. And none of them, of course, were marked. So the challenge was, how are we going to do this?
Love and marriage.
And when you begin to review these black and white photos, they deliver a sense of nostalgia from the 50s and 60s.
Tegler's closed up in the middle 70s. They phoned us and asked us if we wanted our photographs back, which we did. And we took them back, and I've had them ever since. And since I had not ever expected to do much with those prints, I had not identified them.
So the only clue was Tegler's, the former Delaware Avenue bridal shop, where each bride had purchased her gown, then headed to Ettore-Winter Photography Studios for their wedding portrait.
We ended up over the years having quite a number.
But as word reached the public with the help of a Tonawanda news article, calls began pouring into the History Museum about the identity of many of those former brides.
We got calls from Texas, Vegas, Florida, who had looked online, saw their photo, and said, "That's me, I'm number 23. There was a photo gallery.
So they were able to identify themselves.
Yes. And then other brides identified their girlfriends that could tell me if they were deceased or who they were, or they called their girlfriends. So there was a lot of activity going on around finding these brides. To me, it was a very warm and fuzzy experience.
Porreca is pleased to learn so many women were identified.
I had hoped that some would come because, of course, some of those brides were brides then are now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And
they're really great treasures. They look like artwork in some ways.
Well,
and the women were beautiful.
We took a lot of time with them. We put on demonstrations of bridal photographs all over the country and up in Canada also for other photographic groups.
Porreca says it is good to see the work he and his partner Ralph Winter created back on display. He said bridal portraits were once an important part of the local newspaper society pages.
Years ago, when we had both the Courier Express and the Buffalo Evening News on a weekend, both the News on a Saturday and the Courier Express on Sunday would reproduce quite a number. And, of course, give us credit.
Ettore-Winter retired and sold their photography studio in 1983. But thanks to the History Museum, their wedding photography legacy is being reprised. Caldwell says she was extremely surprised by the response received from all aspects of preparing for this bridal exhibit. Eileen Buckley, WBFO News.